So, welcome to all of you. It's a real treat for me to get to have you do all of the work, and I can just come over and dip into the beautiful silence that the retreat creates. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope that you're all been meditating now for over 24 hours continuously. Is it that? Yeah, well over 36, whatever it is. Or you realize I'm supposed to talk to you about deepening your meditation. The retreat is all about meditation. You probably know that. We say that it's silence, that it's a silent retreat. Silence would be a nice, convenient other definition for what meditation is. All of yoga is defined as meditation. Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras that our teacher, considered the equivalent of all of integral yoga. A lot of times we talk about Patanjali Yoga Sutras, the Raja Yoga, as one of the branches of integral yoga, but it really contains all of the integral yoga branches. It has some bhakti, it has lots of concentration and meditation, it has, ethical precepts. But right at the beginning, he says, well, this is a cookbook for enlightenment. And the first thing he tells you, the first thing he says is, now, that's the first word of one of the greatest textbooks on yoga of all time, thousands of years old. Probably the tradition goes way back beyond when it was first written down. Why am I talking about that so much? Because the essence of meditation is contained in the very definition of yoga. He says, yoga chitta vritti nirodha, which means in Sanskrit, which means that when the waves, the vrittis in the mind and the chitta cease, yoga happens. And by yoga, he means enlightenment. He means awakening, nirvana, samadhi. It's been called by many names. I like awakening because our lives are very much like being in a dream, or even better, under a hypnotic spell. Hypnotic spell because we've forgotten who we are. Imagine that. So what does he say? He says that when all those waves, which are the stuff of the spell that we're under, when they cease, you wake up. When they cease, you get this clear reflection of who you are. And seeing is believing. So if you think that you're a chicken and you're going around bucking and picking at little bits of corn on the ground because a hypnotist has put you under a spell for fun. Why would the hypnotist do that? For fun. It's a game. Then when you wake up and find that who you really are is exactly this is what makes us the greatest game on earth or in the universe. Who you really are is exactly what you've been wanting your entire life. Infinite happiness, unending happiness, not little h happiness. Little h happiness is the opposite of sadness. Capital H happiness is the happiness that passeth understanding. You know that from the Bible. It says the peace that passeth understanding, means surpasses. You cannot even understand it with the mind. That's what this happiness is, who you really are. That's the essence of yoga. So the silence and the cessation of the hypnotic waves which are all your thoughts, emotions, feelings, everything that modifies your mind. The silence of that is what brings you to that waking point. That's how all of yoga works. Everything in yoga is about that silence. Even if you're speaking, even if you're listening, like right now, you have an opportunity to meditate. I always like to say, you don't have to even care for what I'm saying or agree with any of it. That doesn't even matter. You can be the winner by focusing intently on your listening. Why? Because you're here, and that's what's happening right now. So might as well focus on that, right? Because you, by focusing on that, are coming to that place where those waves cease. By the way, how are you going to make all those thoughts go away? By sitting there and going, stop. Stop thoughts. I don't want to be thinking. I just want to be calm. I just want to be silent. Right? You see the folly in that, right? Those are all thoughts. You're creating more waves. You want to create less waves. The whole process of meditation is the good news is that you don't have to meditate at all. I'm just quoting Gurudev. And by the way, when I say Gurudev, I hope you all got this in your orientation, but, Swami Satchidananda, our teacher, whose beautiful picture is here, we refer to as Gurudev. Because sometimes you might think after like a few days, they keep quoting Gurudev. He has a lot of interesting things to say. I wonder who that is. And this Swami Satchidananda also seems to have a lot of good things to say that they quote. So that's the same. I think you probably all know this, but just in case, I put myself in your place, because the first time that I arrived on the scene, maybe it was 1969, at Columbia University, and Gurudev was giving a talk in the chapel, and I only went in because I had read some books on yoga, and I saw the word yoga. It was Integral Yoga Institute, was presenting Swami Satchidananda. But when I walked into that by myself, I didn't happen to be with any of my beloved friends at the time. I was by myself, which makes an alien experience even more alien. So when I walked in, I thought, well, this is like, outer space. Like, what is going on here? You see this majestic person dressed in like an orange robe, which he referred to himself not as a robe, but as a pillowcase. On one memorable occasion, he said, this is just like a pillowcase. Simple. And you see all these people going up to him. I figured out what was going on right away, sitting there all by myself, and, because I saw all these people going up and bowing to him and giving him flowers, and they were beaming. And I said, oh, I know what's happening. He's been away for a long time. He must have just returned, probably from overseas. And these people haven't seen him, and they're, all old friends and very fond of him, and were very excited to see him. Little did I know that this was the way he moved through life, because people always approached him like that. So a silent retreat is all about meditation, and meditation is something that you don't do, because the only thing you actually can do is called concentration. In Patanjali's system in Sanskrit, that's called dharana. Dharana is where you focus the mind on any one thing. That's the commonest technology of how you practice meditation. It's not practicing meditation. Sorry to tell you that. Everything that we do in the name of meditation is practicing concentration. And then meditation, thankfully, just happens. And it's been happening your whole life. Meditation happens when you go into that space that's been described many ways, like being in the flow, for example, is a good one, where the thinking stops, the mind is silenced. by our experience. Haven't you had that experience your whole life? Sometimes it's viewing a sunset. You know, if you're with other people, they start whispering as it gets towards sunset. Right? If you're all there to see a sunset, you might be chattering away, but when the sunset actually begins, your voices drop. When you go into a place where there's been a lot of prayer, which is a form of meditation, which means concentration, and what happens after concentration. You go into a temple that has a lot of that, a church, lotus, whatever, you naturally feel like being quieter or even silent. When you're with someone you love and looking into their eyes and just really appreciating your love, whether it's your beloved, partner, or it's a child that you love, a friend, a bosom, we say, whoops. I'm not used to clip-on mics, obviously. My heart is wanting to talk back to you. A bosom friend, a bosom buddy. Isn't that great? What's better than that, And when you're with them and it gets quiet, there's a moment there where you don't want to talk. You don't even want to talk. Words can't express what your heart feels. We've been experiencing this our whole life. I've experienced it many times with food. You taste something. I remember vividly the first time my buddy and I in the Washington, D.C. IYI, one of the many places where they sent me. I was moved around a lot. Make that of that what you will. But we first prepared pesto. I had never had pesto, but I was hearing a lot about it. 1970s. We're in our 20s. We haven't done it. We didn't have any money, so we would go to a bookstore and look at a bunch of cookbooks. We're quite appropriate because yoga is a cookbook, it turns out. So we looked in a bunch of cookbooks, looked up pesto, looked at all the different recipes, didn't buy any of the cookbooks, came back and kind of made an amalgam of that. Still doing the same thing nowadays, except you can also Google recipes. And we made pesto. You know pesto, where you make a paste out of basil. Oh my God. And pine nuts. All these incredible ingredients. So we first whipped it up. And I remember so vividly when we tasted it for the first time. We both took teaspoons, put them in the Cuisinart that somebody had given the Institute. Couldn't afford a cookbook, but we had a Cuisinart because somebody had given us one. So we each took a teaspoon and we put it in our mouth. I'll never forget this. It was one of those moments. We both put it in our mouth, and both of us simultaneously did this. Like that. We did that. We just went, we fell silent. We couldn't even speak because it was so good. I still love it, by the way, if you're wondering what to get me on some occasion. It's a nice pesto. I like to make my own, though. That's meditation. That's silencing of the mind. All the good stuff in life happens when that happens. That's why I said that yoga and meditation, which are synonymous, Gurudev always said, there's no yoga without meditation. He said if you do your hatha yoga not meditatively, don't even call it yoga, just call it exercise. It has to be a meditation if it's going to be yoga. They're synonymous. And what can't you meditate on? Meditation doesn't mean what you think. When I say the practice is concentration, I'll come to that in a moment. But when I say that, you might immediately, a lot of people, if I say concentrate really hard on one thing, or really well on one thing, a lot of us, the mental image we get is something like this. I'm going to really concentrate. This is serious business. I'm going to bear down on this mantra I'm repeating. No. The goal of all of that is to get to the effortless place where you effortlessly feel the love, where you effortlessly feel oneness. That's why the sunset gets to us, right? You feel oneness with nature. You feel oneness with the sky. You feel oneness with all the other people around. My wife Lakshmi and I were at the north rim of the Grand Canyon once at sunset. There's one place that everyone goes that faces west. It's got a 1.5 mile drop straight down off of this big rock, but this top rock is probably, 8, 9, 10 times as big as this room. So you're very comfortable. You don't feel like you're going to plunge off the edge. There's lots of room to walk around. You might as well be in a cathedral. People are setting up their cameras. As sunset approaches, everybody's got, the professionals got tripods and huge lenses. And everybody else has got, their little cameras. This is before, iPhones and all that. And as the sun got lower and lower, everyone's talking. We felt a kinship. Where are you from? Where are you from? So you start to find out where your neighbors are from, because you're in church together. It's a good place to be friendly. And that gets forgotten sometimes too, unfortunately. But as the sun went down, you heard that happy chatter. We were all so happy who isn't happy to be at the Grand Canyon? It's a big effort, especially the North Rim, which is the only place to go at the Grand Canyon because nobody goes there. So there's like 1/10 as many people. It's much higher. It's a whole different ecosystem. So if you get nothing else out of this retreat, you now know that if you go to the Grand Canyon, go to the North Rim. You won't regret it. You have to come down through Utah, and you'd be crazy not to stop at Bryce and Zion, these other great national parks, but save most of the time for the North Rim because it's unbelievable. So as the sun sets, that happy, excited murmur and friendship, making new friends, this and that, got quieter and quieter and went down to a kind of a murmur. Murmur is a nice word, isn't it? Murmur. That's a mantra in itself. There's this beautiful hum of murmuring, and then it fell completely silent as the sun touched the horizon and the sky lit up orange, right? And the only sound you heard was the clicking of camera shutters. Honestly, children, families were there. No one spoke. That's what you want in the name of meditation. That you're trying to formalize in your practice going to that natural state where we feel whole, fulfilled, at one. And why this all works, by the way, is because this is quite the setup. It turns out that your mind isn't what you think it is. First of all, you think it's you. That's Yoga 101. You're not the mind. You're not the body. You have a mind and body. When you say my mind is disturbed today, you've proved it. My mind. It belongs to me. It's not me. I can't say my watch. If the watch were me, I wouldn't say that, right? It's something that belongs to you. So you also say, my body. Oh, my body is aching today. I sat too much on the floor. And by the way, be comfortable on the retreat. There's no requirement that you hurt your knees or your back. Really, absolutely be. Even right now, if you want to go and grab a chair, you can get a chair. Okay, these back jacks are probably pretty comfortable, I imagine. But it turns out that your mind isn't for thinking only. We think that. Why do you have a mind? Well, according to yoga, according to Gurudev, and the most often quoted image that he gave us, the metaphor that he used the most to describe yoga, is that the mind is your built-in mirror. Standard equipment. You come with a mirror, but not a regular mirror that reflects your face so that you can see if you look good before you go out. It's reflecting who you are. There's a few steps here, so bear with me. And many of you already know all of this, I know that, or know it way beyond what I know. That's fine. I'll try to imbibe your wisdom and reflect it back. That's what this game is anyway. I don't actually know much of anything. But it turns out that that mind is reflecting all the time who you really are, which I already told you, not the body, not the mind. My teacher's teacher put it vividly in a chant that we always use in our integral yoga kirtans. And that is, he chants, Chidanan, Chidanan, Chidanandaham. That means knowledge, bliss. Chid is consciousness, infinite consciousness. Ananda is bliss. Chidanandaham. Hum. Isn't it interesting? The word hum in Sanskrit, literally hum, means I am. That's what I am. I'm infinite consciousness, infinite bliss. What you've wanted your whole life, to be happy, everything that we do in life is to be happy. The only way you can be unhappy, because you actually are happiness. He said you are happiness personified. That was his first and foremost affirmation for inner peace, which I mentioned on that sheet. I highly recommend those affirmations for inner peace. First and foremost thing, he says, you are happiness personified. The only way you can be unhappy is if you look for happiness from outside. Since I'm Bill back there, it has his glasses on his head, so I don't have to do it to demonstrate. They're up here. You can turn around and look if you want. Don't embarrass him. But if Bill goes, where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? Because he already has the glasses, the only way that he cannot have the glasses is if he forgets that he has them and looks for them elsewhere. The only way, because you have the happiness, why do you have it? Because you are it. It's better than having it. You are it. Because that's who you actually are. Chidanan, Chidanan, Chidanandaham. If that's not enough, in the second line of that chant, he says, in all conditions. And he has you chant it yourself with an I. I am that. I am knowledge, bliss absolute. In all conditions. So even while the conditions are going on, even while you're saying, oh, I feel depressed, I feel stiff, my body is sick, all of this, that's not who you are. Even in those conditions, you're already happiness personified. So the mirror becomes very important for only one reason. We've forgotten all of that, right? It's not common for people to say, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I am the immortal self. That's what the chant says. Immortal self I am. That's what all the Upanishads say. That's what the most ancient scriptures in the world say. That's what all the spiritual traditions, if you have the eye to see and the ear to hear, they all say this. Jesus said it very clearly. He told his disciples, love one another even as I have loved you. Even meaning the same way. How can you do that? How can you love like Jesus? You realize what he's telling them? Love one another the way I've loved you. You can't do that unless you are actually on that level. I was going to say raise yourself to that level, and that's completely wrong. You're not going to raise yourself to that level. You already are on that level. None of the spiritual practices that you do are to bring you peace and joy and happiness and love. You are that. The practices are just done to remove what's keeping you from seeing that. That's all. It's obscured. So you just remove what's obscuring it. That's what yoga is all about. You remove what's obscuring it, and it shines. You know, if you accidentally went to that viewing spot for the sunset and were still wearing your sunglasses because it's very bright up there at that altitude, these crystalline days, you know, and you go, I don't know, it doesn't look as beautiful or as bright as I thought. Oh, I'm still wearing my sunglasses. You remove them and boom. You know, you didn't have to make the sun brighter and more beautiful. All you had to do is remove what was obscuring that. That's what meditation and all of yoga is about. That's what silence is about. There is a technology for that, for helping you to remove whatever keeps you from seeing who you are. And you may think, how could I have forgotten who I am? If I'm so great, I'm happiness personified. It's saying that you are divine. You get that. People who use the word God, it's saying you're God, you're Satchidananda. That chant actually says that. Haralu me alamastu Satchidanandaham. I am Satchidananda. Not just my beloved teacher. You know, you see these pictures everywhere. These pictures are mirrors. You know, that's who I am. Not a body of a certain height and a beard of a certain length. No one was around him just for that, believe me. that could wear thin real quickly, and somebody else might have a better body and a better beard. His was very nice, but it doesn't have to be. You know? You're around him because he is awakened to that fact that he is that bliss. So when you're in his presence, you go, oh, there's something I've been trying to remember to do my entire life, maybe for thousands of lifetimes. That's the experience of being in front of enlightened masters, great scriptures, the teachings, and ultimately your own experience. That's what you get from all of nature. The sky at night, that infinity. There's something in us that resonates with us because we are that. We are that. Meditation is all about that. Yoga and meditation are synonymous, and meditation and silence are synonymous. So now you got the whole picture. Oh, except I left one thing out. How in the world could you forget? How could you forget? I mean, I'm telling you that you're infinite, that you're God. God, the way Gurudev always used it, he would say, peace is my God. Your own peace, your own happiness, joy. You don't like happiness personified? He also says you're peace personified. You're supreme bliss. Your infinite consciousness. Those are all the same thing. It's one of the greatest package deals in the universe. You know how we always say, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, and we translate it in English. You've probably done it during the retreat. We say, may the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. Great package deal, because you get any one of those, you get all of them. It's all the same thing. It's just different ways of talking about the same thing. Isn't that nice? That's why you might want to follow these recipes in yoga, which are all recipes for removing what keeps you from getting that clear reflection. You notice the way I keep circling this question about how could you have forgotten that? Why am I doing that? Is Paraman, avoiding answering this question? Well, let me tell you who else has avoided answering this question. Everybody who's ever talked about this. There is no adequate answer that will really satisfy you. I can tell you what Gurudev said the most often. He said he would tell a little story, and it's actually very, very profound. He would say that in the beginning is God and nothing but God, and God looks around and God is bored. There's no one to play with. He wants to play a game. He, she, it. And he would always say, I just say he out of, habit, because that's what we do in language or used to. But he would often correct that. But he said, to me, God is peace, infinite peace. So God looks around and wants to have some fun. So God creates everything out of what? There's nothing around to create it out of except itself. So God creates everything out of itself. It creates the illusion of separation into parts. Why? You can make this so complicated, but it's not complicated at all. It's simply because if you're going to play a game, you've got to have pieces. You can't play cards with one giant piece of cardboard. But if you cut it into 52 squares and you paint them to look differently, now you can play, hundreds of different types of card games and while away your life. But since this is God's game and God is wanting to be entertained, we should expect that it's going to be the best game in the universe. So what is the game? Ultimately, it's a game of hide and seek. God forgetting that God is God, and we all thinking that we are these separate pieces, when the truth is that we are actually all, each one of us, the whole ball of wax. You're just not seeing it. That's what the whole promise of yoga is. It's right there in the very next sutra, the very beginning of that seminal work I told you about, Patanjali Yoga Sutra. First he says, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, and then he says, when the waves cease, what happens? You get the clear reflection, you wake up and see who you are, and in the very next sutra, he says, then the seer, with a capital S, they do that. Capitalization is very important. Remember I said capital H? Happiness, capital P, peace. That's the peace that passeth understanding. Passeth understanding means it's beyond the grasp of the mind. You want to get out of your mind. Yogis want to get out of their mind. Is there something bad about the mind? No. The mind is that built-in mirror. It's great. It's the most important game piece in the game of the universe. So it's wonderful. It can do anything and everything. But when it's presenting you with a nightmare, better calm down and wake up and see who you are. So that's why we've forgotten. Because God, to play this game, had to make very, very strong tendency for us to forget, because otherwise it would be like, I'll create all the game pieces, and they would all go, poof, 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 I'm God, Satchidananda, boom, boom, boom. They would all be realized instantly. I mean, how are you going to forget that? So he has to make the forgetting really strong. They call that Maya in Sanskrit, the illusion. I asked Gurudev about it once. I said, how is it all done? Is it really true that none of this is real? We were on Fifth Avenue, and it was glistening after a rain. It was late at night. All the shop windows were open, and we're driving along after a lecture. And I asked him, is it really true that none of this is real? I didn't just ask him like that, because you don't do that. There's your yoga master, and he's got his head back, and he's resting after giving this thunderous yoga talk for an hour and a half or 2 hours, 1,000 people in a big church. And so very hesitantly, I said, Gurudev, because I didn't want to disturb him. I was in the back seat. He was in the front, of course. And he went, he gave me that little opening. Is it really true that none of this is real? And he went, this is all he did. He didn't open his eyes. He just went, I knew him well enough to know that, a little bit, to know that he was saying, yeah, that's true. And then I said, because I love this stuff, you might be able to tell that. So I said, stuff about like knowing the absolute truth of what's going on is why I got into this. So I said, how is it done? Because it all looks so real. I didn't say that. But I said, how is it done? Is it like a magic trick? And he said, he didn't open his eyes. He just went, more like hypnosis. And that's what meditation and yoga is all about. How do you wake up from a hypnotic spell? Remember I said a while ago that you were like a chicken pecking at scraps when you're actually the Lord of the universe, the goddess, the supreme. See the light in the eyes of this gallery of saints? It's just because they all experience that. You look at Master Shivananda, they all experience that. And nothing that any of these saints and all the ones that aren't pictured here have experienced is something that you can't experience. Not only can you experience, it's your birthright. And it's what you've always wanted. And it's what everyone that you meet always wants, because everyone wants to be happy. Even people who torture themselves or kill themselves, they can't because they're actually immortal, but they could kill the body. They do that because they so want to be happy that they can't stand suffering anymore. Right? Everyone does everything they do in order to be happy. I'm sure Vladimir Putin, thinks that it's going to make him happy if he does this insane war. So we're all in the same boat in a way, very much so. So that's why it's hard to remember. And that's why it's important to get that mind mirror reflecting clearly. Now, why isn't it reflecting clearly? Because the whole thing doesn't work. The game doesn't work if it just reflects clearly who you are. And it immediately says, you're God. Poof, game over, instant. The mind is always reflecting who you are. Here's the trick. The mind is distorted by every thought, feeling, and emotion that goes through it. Is a wave. They call it vrittis, I said. That's the problem, and that's how meditation works. Meditation is the solution. Because how it works is that when you calm that, you get the reflection. When you get the reflection, there's instant recognition, and you wake up. Now, most people don't get the mind completely still right away. That would be the extreme exception. Most people, it's a lifelong process, removing all the wave generators that we have in our psyche, in our mind, all the time, that are obstructing us seeing this. So meditation, you start very simply, like I said, with concentration, focusing on one thing. Because if you focus the mind on one thought, then instead of having thousands of waves in the mind, when there's waves in the mind, it doesn't act as a good mirror. If you look in a little bowl and it's got a lot of waves because you just shook it, you're looking in the bowl of water to see your reflection, like an old-fashioned mirrors were that way before they made mirrors the way they do now. It's full of waves. You won't even be able to see your face, right? It'll be the surface, too choppy. What do you do at that point? I referred to this earlier. In the name of meditation, are you going to reach your hand into the bowl and smooth out the waves so that you can get a reflection? Anything you do is going to make it worse. So what you want to do is leave it alone. Let it calm down. And all the technologies of meditation are about that. Leaving it completely alone, turns out, is very difficult because the mind is used to constantly generating thoughts. So instead, what we do is we try to create one wave, because by concentrating, focusing deeply on one thing, but not with tension, with ease, with flow. It's all about that, okay? It's all about not trying too hard, but also not doing anything, okay? It's all about that, the middle path, the Buddha calls it, right? It's all about that. Everyone hears these great stories of these saints and sages and, founders of entire, faiths and all of this. And they all think, I want to be like that. I'm going to work on this intensely day and night. And they always tell you, no, it's not going to an extreme that's going to help. That's going to make matters worse. Go easy. But not, Gurudev used to say, take it easy, but not lazy. He always said that. So there's a middle path there, but it is easy. He doesn't say, go as hard as you can, just not too hard. No, he says, take it easy, but not lazy. His teacher, Master Shivanandi, used to sing the Little Song. He did all these chants in English, which was scandalous back in the beginning of the 20th century in India, because it wasn't the scriptural language. But he would do English because he wanted to be universally available. And even then, that made it more universally available. So the Little Song says things like this: eat a little, drink a little, do asana a little, do japa. Japa is mantra repetition, a little. Everything is a little. Little of a lot of things. That's integral yoga. That's Patanjali yoga. That's meditation. So you pick one thing, get a strong wave about that, create a habit about focusing on the one thing, and pretty soon, if there's just one wave, and that's saying a lot, because that's not the tendency. The tendency is as soon as you sit to get one wave, you get thousands of waves. But if you ever get to the point where you have one wave, what's about to happen? It's not going to stay like that long. You can't have one wave. There'll be none. Get it to one, and it goes to one, to none. When it goes to none, you get the clear reflection and go, oh, there I am. I'm happiness personified. I'm Satchidananda. I'm, infinite bliss, infinite joy. As long as you look for that from outside, you will always disturb your own peace and joy. It's like looking for glasses that you already have. You're doomed. Patanjali proves that too. He says, if you put all of your, attention on, I have to get something to be happy, then when you get it, most of the time you don't get it, right? I have to get the perfect partner. I have to get the perfect job. I have to get the perfect yoga practice. You can do it with anything. You can do it with a mantra. I have to get the perfect mantra. No, I don't like this mantra. That one looks better, If you do happen to get it, the thing that you really want, and that's, that's not easy. If you don't get it, you say, of course I'm unhappy and disappointed because I didn't get what I wanted, right? But what if you do get it? Why are you unhappy and disappointed now? Because as soon as you get it, if you thought this will make me happy, as soon as you get it, a bunch of things are going to happen. First of all, there's that universal experience that you see on the faces of Olympic champions and sports champions and all that. It's just there's that little look of there's a jubilance, and then there's what now? Is this all there is? So there's that. That's philosophical. But even more fundamental, if you think this is going to really make you happy, you finally got the partner, you've tricked them into loving you, you know, by disguising all of your worst stuff. Of course, I know none of you are that way, but just having fun. Okay, but you finally get them and you think, now I'm happy. I wanted this for so long. Now I have it. Now I'm happy. What will you immediately do? To the same degree that you thought getting that would make you happy, you fear losing it, right? Oh no, why is she looking at that one and smiling a few seconds too long? Why is he doing this? You know? And even if you're not the jealous type, which is basically all human beings, but even if you're not particularly afflicted with that, you could still fear losing, right? Because you look around and you realize, like, at any time, you know, at any time that can be taken away, you know. Age takes it away, even if nothing goes wrong. Every minute we're getting older, and it doesn't seem like anyone gets out alive. Gurudev once said, God is the greatest killer of them all. He spares, I'll use he there, the women won't mind when you hear the rest of it, he spares no one. Of course, the other side of that teaching is we're immortal, we don't actually die. The body dies. I just heard him recently in one of his talks that was at the evening satsang here a week or two ago, and there was a passage in this talk where he talks about death that I've heard all these, you know, hundreds and thousands of talks, and I've heard them many, many times because I love listening to them and studying them. There's tons of this on YouTube, by the way. But I never heard this particular thing. He starts talking about death, and he says, death is something wonderful. It's enjoyable. It's like, you know, your old car got too beat up. The body is just your vehicle. It's not you. And after a certain point, you can't get parts anymore. You can't repair it anymore. And you're going to get a nice new car. You know, that's what death is. You're gonna junk the old. He would often say that. You're just junking the old one. The Bhagavad Gita is more elegant. It's a worn-out garment, but maybe. But Gurudev always talked about junking. He liked that. Junk the old car. He's very automotive, or among his many, many passions. He was an auto mechanic, among other things. He would say, you junk it and you're going to get a nice new car. He said, and on this occasion, this is what I hadn't heard before. I haven't transcribed it yet, but I'm going to for my own sake. He said, you should enjoy death. It's something wonderful. And I'm thinking, yeah, he's saying, you know, death is like, I'm going to get a nice new car. What is there? It's not enough. He's not just saying, don't fear death, you're immortal, which is fundamental, you know, yoga teaching and spiritual teaching. He's actually saying, you should enjoy it. And he uses like a bunch of adjectives in a row. I wish I could remember it all now, but I will later. I'm going to transcribe it just so that I can inscribe it in my heart a little bit more firmly and be able to repeat it at appropriate times, which is basically all the time, because all of our fears are based on that, right? Fundamental teaching of yoga, death is not real. Nothing actually dies. Not in some sort of poetic way, as long as you're remembered. Who wants that? I mean, what does that do for me? As long as you're remembered, you're more. No, they're literally saying that you don't die. You know, and that if you haven't woken up, you haven't gotten that clear mind mirror yet, don't worry. You are going to. And so is everybody, even Vladimir Putin, you know, and, you know, fill in the blank, whoever it is that you're not appreciating with total love. They're all going to wake up. That's how the game works, sooner or later. Now, if you want to do it a little sooner, that's what yoga is all about. But it isn't really about doing it sooner, because that puts too much stress on you. It's really about the fact that you've arrived near the end, or you wouldn't even be in this discussion. You wouldn't be, to use the Hamilton expression, you wouldn't be in the room. You wouldn't be in the room, right? So you're near the end. It's not by accident. You don't easily come to this point. It's really true. You should never beat yourself up and feel you're unworthy. He used to tell us, if you feel like you're unworthy, then what do you think of me? You think that I'm so great and you're unworthy, then you mustn't think that I'm so great, because how did your karma bring you to be with me if I'm so great? Not that he was saying he was so great, but he said, you're all thinking that. So never say that you're unworthy. Never put yourself down. Oh, yoga, you can really use that to beat yourself up and put yourself down, because you're never going to be as great as, somebody else. So this is called deepening your meditation. You all got this sheet, by the way, so don't worry. You might be thinking, is he ever going to get to the point and actually tell us how to deepen our meditation? This has everything that that I know on the subject. It's got some really good stuff. I'm basically just passing on what I learned from Gurudev, and from life. But the most important thing is understanding that, first of all, again to quote Gurudev, heaven can wait. He liked that was a movie. I don't know whether you know that, but it was two movies. It was the movie back maybe in the 40s, and then it was remade with Warren Beatty and Julie Christie. Really good movie, by the way, if you're looking for something for your list. Heaven Can Wait, really fun. And so when that was very popular in the 80s, Gurudev started referring to that. Heaven can wait, That's that, take it easy but not lazy. You don't have to, if you're going to tense up about getting enlightened, you can't control that. You don't know how many waves there are and what your level of karma is. Don't worry about that. It's enough that you see the light, You know that that's what you want, and you move in that direction. You've done the most important thing you can do. If you want the biggest tip on deepening your meditation, I'll give you a few top ones, not the little ones, but the top ones. One is this: be in the company of we usually say like-minded seekers, but recently I've started saying like-hearted seekers. Be around people like that. That's why we do this. That's why the ashram exists, because some of us came and decided to never go home. They couldn't get rid of us. We came to a retreat and they couldn't that's actually why I'm here. I came to a retreat, they couldn't get rid of me. Yeah. Because it's so sweet being, living with, your best, most inspiring friends. What does that mean to you? Can you all pull up stakes and move to an ashram? You need a job, or a lot of money so that you don't need a job, or whatever it is. We can't all do this. I know that. But you can find like company wherever you are. You can go to yoga classes. Nowadays, you can use live streaming and virtual programs and Zoom and all of that to connect. That's really important. And when you're able to do things live, like we're finally doing here in this room, go and do those where you are also. And you can come and recharge at the big battery charging station. You're like an electric vehicle. This is a real quick charging station, but they are also little, maybe slightly slower charging stations wherever you are. There are more and more. Yeah. So do that. You can also get that good company through your reading, through your study. Remind yourself of these ideas regularly. That deepens the meditation probably as much as anything. Why? Because I'm going to keep saying the most important thing, and it's true. Every one of these things is the most important thing. You should hear my list of my top 10 favorites movies or something. It's at least 100 movies are in my top 10. But the most important qualification that Patanjali gives for having success in your entire yoga practice, by the way, there aren't a lot of different practices. It's all meditation. Hatha yoga is meditation. Even the ethical foundations are meditation. You have to approach it with your whole heart. He proves it. He says what you need to succeed is first of all, you need to do it a long time. We've been talking about that. That's the first thing he says. For success, you need to do it a long time. So forget it. Don't worry about it. You're not looking for something instant. You don't want something cheap. You want it to be a long time. Let it be a long time. You've got plenty of time. Heaven can wait. Don't worry. You're on the train. You're bound for glory, right? Yeah, you are. You really are. You really don't have to worry about it. Keep your heart open. He says you can do it for a long time, and he says without break. That's a big, very important hint on how to succeed in meditation, which is how to succeed in all of yoga. Without interruption. Get something that you do every day. That's one form of not without interruption. Some amount that you do every day, not on and off. That's the tendency. I did it that way for years. I would do a lot, and then there would be a break. And I would do a lot, and there would be a break. Finally, I got sick and tired of always going, why aren't I doing it every day? And I heard myself say that for like the 10,000th time. Thankfully, this was a long time ago in this life. And I just got sick and tired of wishing that I was more regular in the most important practice of all, meditation. And I said, wait. This is what the dawning of yogic consciousness is like for me, is sort of like lifting your head out of the slime and just going, whoa, and seeing something so obvious, I went, wait, I could just do it, and then I would never have to listen to myself complain about not doing it. And I said, okay, this is it. I'm going to take a resolve for the rest of my life. I'm sharing this because this might work for some of you. For others of you, you've long since done it, and for others of you, this might not be what works for you. But just in case it does, I know a lot of people have told me that it worked for them too. I just said, what's a minimum amount that I could do on my worst day? Because I'm going to make a resolve right now that no matter what, I'm going to do it. So the worst day of my life, what's a minimum amount? And I came up with a very modest amount. It ended up being 15 minutes. It's a big story, but I won't tell you how it got from 10 to 15. It involved a bear in the wild, another hiking story. The bear is the totem, so for me. And I said, all right, I'll make it 15, because I always thought it should be 15, and I backed it off to 10. So pick a minimum amount. I said, I can do this on my deathbed. I could do this at my own funeral. I could do 15 minutes. And I made all these caveats. Very important to have this is a legal contract. Make it airtight. And I said, it is first and foremost, it does not have to be a good meditation. God forbid you say, I have to have a good meditation. No, I have to have 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be a good meditation, but I have to do that every day, and I will do that every day. And I've never wavered from that. And I've done it in the hospital, and I've done it sitting at my father's bedside when he was not too far from death, and many, many other situations. And then I did it many times, but not too long, where it was like 2 a.m. and I was dead tired after a real unusual, strenuous, everything going wrong sort of day. And then I said, oh, thank God, I just get to lie down now. And then I go, oh, Shiva, I haven't meditated. And then I would force myself. I could be lying down as long as I didn't go to sleep, And I would just say the mantra. Mantra is most of us here, that's our meditation object. It doesn't have to be yours. Then I got tired of that. So that almost never happens, because now I think about it first thing, if it's going to be an unusual day. And I make sure, if on the rare occasions that I can only do the minimum, that I get it in soon. Just if for nothing else, not because I'm so great, but just so that I don't have to do it at 2 a.m. Get tired of complaining, sick and tired. Gurudev used to say, when people say, I'm sick and tired, I'm so happy, he would say. Because when you get sick and tired, that's when you're ready, to make some progress. At first you become sicker, and then you become a seeker. This is what we lived with. Constant puns, constant fun. He loved to pun. He said about the mind, you know how we say, waste not, want not? What he said was want not and waste not your life. That wanting is going for happiness from outside when you are that. So he says, do it for a long time without interruption. So something every day. But there's another thing to without interruption that I hope you're already experiencing on the retreat. It means throughout the day. There's nothing. The meditative position is just being open-hearted and awake. Focusing on what you're doing? Yes. Why? Because did somebody have to tell me to focus on the pesto the first time I tasted it? No. No one had to tell me to focus on it. I was talking to a dear friend of mine recently, and he was complaining about his meditation practice a little bit and sometimes not being able to focus well enough. And he has a newborn baby who Lakshmi and I had done a blessing before the baby was born and after the baby was born, so we're like intimately connected. Love the baby. Oh, gorgeous baby. And he sends me these pictures of him holding his little daughter. And I said, when you're holding her, this is a big tip for deepening your meditation. Get ready. This is recent. I said, this just came, these things just come from Gurudev sometimes. I said, when you're holding your daughter and looking into her eyes, because her eyes are like, all babies I know, but, this one that I'm so close to, like, windows to the universe, the far reaches. And I said, when you're looking into her eyes, she's got this incredible smile too. I said, do you have trouble focusing on her? I said, do that with your mantra. Because, of course, he has no trouble focusing on his daughter. Just do that with your mantra. Remember that. And that's what Patanjali says next. Long time without break. And then he says, with satkara. That's the word in Sanskrit. And there's no adequate English word. It gets translated as complete enthusiasm, full confidence, zeal. And what I like best, simple, love. Find something that you love, like that baby. That should be your object of formal meditation. Do it with love. And that should be what your relationship to everything in your life is, so that you can meditate throughout the day. You're sitting right now. Sit with awareness, sit with love. That doesn't mean be rigid. It just means love yourself. He said when you get up after a formal sitting, don't just jump up. Massage your legs a little bit. Thank them for cooperating, and then get up. Isn't that beautiful? It's a stance of love throughout your life. You walk in love. He was once asked, why do you walk? You walk so gently. And he says, well, I feel like why do you walk like that? It looks like you're almost floating when you walk. Not slow motion either, necessarily. It could be very fast. And he said, it's because I feel like I'm walking on the bosom of my mother. Mother Nature, the Shakti behind everything. You know, find that with everything. You've got something to meditate on every second. You're breathing. You can meditate on that. If you use mantra for meditation, mantra means a sound that helps you meditate. So you meditate on the sound like Om Shanti, and it helps you to meditate on Om Shanti. That's called a positive feedback loop. You meditate on your breathing. When you focus on your breath becomes softer, which helps you to be meditative, helps you to focus on your breath. Focus on your breath, it helps you focus on your breath. Combine mantra and breath, like Gurudev often talks about, and recommend it to all of us. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, or however it divides up for your mantra and your breath. Then you get a double positive feedback loop. When can't you do that? You're breathing all the time. The greatness of the mantra is so much that at one point he said, if you forget to or aren't able to do your hatha yoga, at least meditate. And at least breathe, he said. And he said, and if you forget to breathe, at least do the mantra. Still do the mantra. Yeah, that's how great it is. Sound, very powerful. That's why in the Bible it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. It says the same thing, almost word for word, in the most ancient scriptures on the earth, in the ancient Vedas. It says that sound is the absolute Brahman, the infinite consciousness, which is what you are. That's the great news. You're doing all of this because that's who you are. And you're just having fun playing the game to wake up. And when you say, well, what kind of game is this? There's all these people dying and starving, and there's all this horrible violence in the world. I find it interesting, by the way. We all do that. I do that, definitely, okay? But when people go on that particular rant, you very rarely hear anybody saying, like, why does God put all these good people in the world that are self-sacrificing and creative, and all these musicians and loving people and caring, giving? People don't seem to rant against God for that. It's only all the other stuff. Well, you can't have a game, not the best game in the universe, without having some conflict. I know it's not satisfactory, but it's not satisfactory because we're not awake. In the dream, it's very unsatisfactory. When you wake up, what all of these saints and sages say is that what seemed like a hell is actually a heaven, and that's what you realize. And how could that be? Those people are killed, they're dying right now. People are dying of starvation or violence right now. If it wasn't for the fact that death isn't real for anyone, then none of that makes any sense. Why should they be sacrificed? They're not. Remember, he said you should enjoy death. There's a great moment in Chaucer's Troilus and Cressida where, magnificent poem, and every bad thing has happened to the villain, and his beloved wife is in the tent of his enemy, and he can see it, and they're under attack. And things get worse and worse, and she's been kidnapped, and he finally dies. It's one of the greatest things I ever read in literature, up there with Shakespeare. And as soon as he dies, what happens in the poem, his soul flies out of his body above he's the hero of heroes, but there's a limit. He flies out. He soars up into the sky above the battlements, sees the whole thing as it really is. And what do you think he does? The first thing he does when he flies up, I wasn't expecting it when I read Chaucer. He laughs. He laughs. Oh, thank God. None of this was real. The very self-same thing. When you wake up from a nightmare, when you fully wake up, it's like, oh, thank God. That was just a dream. I know it doesn't satisfy you, but all of these great souls, they've got that twinkle in their eye because they did experience this. That doesn't mean you don't have compassion, and it doesn't mean you don't try to alleviate suffering. We're born for that. So Patanjali says you got to do it with your full heart. So that's maybe the biggest tip on meditation throughout the day in day-to-day life. Is do everything with your full heart. Why not? Why not? You're here. Why not show up? not do things robotically. When you're brushing your teeth, you could brush your teeth with the mantra. You could focus on what you're doing. When you're chewing food, you can chew it with the mantra. When you walk, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Mantra, breath, whatever is your focus. It could be anything you like and that's uplifting. And now I'll give you the biggest, most important tip. Remember, I promised we'd keep doing this. And this is it. I'm actually pretty certain there's nothing beyond this one. This is it. The biggest tip of all. This talk is called, we always have this talk. They like this title. I should say we, like this title. But it's always called Deepening Your Meditation. Maybe you saw that on your schedule. That's what I'm supposed to be talking about. I don't know whether I'm digging us deeper into a hole. We're going to deepen your meditation. This is the biggest tip right now, so pay attention. All you have to do is take a pen and cross out. You could do it on your schedule if you want, later if you don't have it handy. Take your pen and cross out, put a big X through your. That's the biggest aid of all the meditation. Get rid of that I, me, mine. It's not your meditation. Meditate for the good of all. Do everything that you do in the name of yoga, not just in the name of yoga, in the name of your life. You're here, you're breathing for the sake of everyone. What good is that going to do, everyone? At the very least, your corner of the world is going to be more peaceful. Because when you think of others, instead of thinking about me, I've got to get what's going to make me happy, which is a formula for disaster, will always make you miserable. Always. Guaranteed. Doesn't matter whether you get it or not. So if you want to break from that, think of others. Do it for the sake of others. Make your corner of the world more peaceful. How are you going to solve all these wars and conflicts and hatred? If it doesn't start with you, you're going to fix everybody else? And you can't even make your corner peaceful? So start here, and then you will radiate that just by being who you are. Gurudev says in those affirmations, you won't have to do anything, he says. Just by being yourself, you will be of the greatest service to others. So when you meditate, always, when you do formal practice, always just add. It's so easy. You can do this in a second. This is the way I do it. You can make it real fancy, but I always just say for the good of all. For the good of all. My body, I'm doing some hatha yoga. My body should be healthy so that I can be of service. I'm meditating. I should radiate a little peace. And you know what actually happens? People will sometimes come up to a stranger and say, we've had this happen in a restaurant. The two of you seem so peaceful. What is it? And we just think that we're in a restaurant eating a meal, But that's what happens. You don't even, without even knowing it, you become of service to others. And then, of course, I'm not in any way saying you shouldn't, do very active things. But if you don't do them coming from your own peace, you're just adding fuel to the flames. That's what I heard with my outer space experience of Gurudev that first time. There was a riot going on outside and glass shattering. I had moved past the student riots that I took part in because I had gotten a little tired of that. And he was speaking about peace, and there was a mob roar outside and shattering glass. We started most of the wave of student riots. We're very proud of that at Columbia in the late 60s to end the Vietnam War and all this stuff. It took a few years. And I'm not saying you don't do that. I did. And, marched on Washington and all of that. But when he was speaking, somebody got up in the audience with the roar of the crowd outside and said, isn't it selfish to go after your own peace when there's so much trouble in the world? And we're in this beautiful chapel, and we're hearing outside, shattering glass. And he said, well, it's like this. If you're walking back to your car in a desolate area with a can of gasoline because you ran out of gas, Gurudeva tells him this story, and you come across a house, deserted house on fire. You look everywhere for some water. If something isn't done immediately, that house is going to be lost. You can see that there's moments left. You can't find a hose, a bucket. There's no one to help. There's no one to call to. But you want to do something. You have to do something right now. Do something. So he takes the can of gas and throws it onto the fire. He says, if you go out to bring peace to the world without finding the peace in yourself first, you are adding fuel to the flames. That's why these great leaders like Martin Luther King and Gandhi and many others, they have that great moral strength, to be able to say, I've been to the mountain, So that's the importance of it. But it doesn't have to be in a grand way. You don't have to be in the history books. If you are, God bless you. And when you're interviewed, you should say, and that talk by Paraman, Reverend Paraman, was so great. I'd like to thank the Academy. Oh, I'm not supposed to mention the Academy. Sorry. Talk about getting sick of a subject really quickly. We've all overdosed on that. So that's the number one tip. It really is, of all. Selflessness is the best way to calm the mind. If you really do things for the sake of others, which means no expectation of a return for you. What does that mean? I'm just doing it for the joy of doing it. When I say for the good of all, it doesn't mean they must experience the benefit of this or I'm going to be miserable. Then you're not doing it selflessly. Selfishness always disturbs the mind. Selflessness frees the mind. That's the number one tip. If you really live that way more and more, even in your job that you're paid for, how can I say it's for the good of? You can do it that way. You can say, yeah, they're paying me because I can't come here if I don't have a roof over my head and some food and some clothes, but I'm doing this for the good of all. And the good of all could just be you being peaceful and kind to other people that you contact. It could be in many, many different ways, and that has a ripple effect, and a few people around you are a little bit more peaceful. So if you do that, if your whole life becomes about that, you don't even have to sit to meditate. Your whole life is a meditation. Your mind mirror is going to get very calm because the thing that makes the most waves, you're waiting for the waves to come down, and then the rest is all about just waking up when you get the clear reflection. If you live that way, the waves aren't going to even be generated. So that's the most important. By far. By far. There's nothing like that. It's the best thing for the body and the mind. It's funny because there's a book called, the best-selling book we ever had when I worked at Integral Yoga Distribution was Alkalize or Die. Maybe some of you have seen it. What a great title, Alkalize or Die. Do it my way or you're going to die. This is great American salesmanship. He was like this professional wrestler, actually, I think, who wrote this book, but not a real wrestler, not the showbiz variety. But in any case, this big hulking guy, and it's all about eat plant-based, and meat is the most acidifying, and acidifying is what kills you. Everything that we talk about in the name of yogic diet too is in there. Although, people who worry about alkalizing all the time sometimes are a little bit tedious. That's acidic. That isn't. Calm down. And I'll tell you why to calm down, because he says that the most alkalizing thing you can do of everything that he mentions at a certain point in the book, he says the most alkalizing thing that you can do is selfless service. That's what he says. So beautiful. This big, big guy, big giant of a man. Yeah. The best thing is selfless service. So it's even the best thing for your body, the best thing for your mind, best thing to get that calm mind mirror. The rest of the tips, like I said, are on the sheet. I could do another hour just going through them, but they're all pretty self-evident. For your seated meditation, some pranayama, hugely effective. The breathing practices it's all preparation. Preparation for meditation is the most important. Everything about that. Your hatha yoga, so that your body can sit comfortably, sitting very still, taking a firm resolve that you're not going to budge. But you can only do that if you know that you have a posture that's not going to injure you. You don't want to take that resolve and then, somebody's going to have to drive you to the emergency room because of what you've done. So when you've got a real comfortable position, sit still. Energy rises. And that enhances meditation. It automatically happens. That's why you want your spine straight. Have a special spot where you only ever meditate. Then it'll have that Grand Canyon effect. It'll have that church temple effect. When you go into that corner, it could just be a corner if you don't have a whole room. A room is nice. But if you don't have that, just set up a sheet or a screen or something. Make it fun. Have a beautiful altar. Something to put a candle on, some pictures. It doesn't have to be like our altars. It could be. It's what inspires you. And then when you go in, you feel like you've dropped your burdens and left the world behind. Put on some special clothes that you only ever wear for meditation. Why? You have this in lots of religious traditions because vibrations affect things. And if you wear this prayer shawl all the time, when you put it on, it's like you're wrapping yourself in prayer and meditation whenever you put it on, And you're not wearing the clothes that you worry about, paying the bills and what you have to do to be happy and all those things that keep the game going. They're not bad. Don't beat yourself up. You know who invented this game, by the way, that seems so unfair? If you've been following along in the scorebook, who invented this game is you. Gold star. I see a few people pointing at themselves. By the way, when you point at yourself, even here in the West, we don't go, me? We always go, me. We point at our heart, not our head. That's satkara. Let your heart lead. Huge. Selflessness isn't about doing something artificial. It's about aligning yourself with your own true nature. When we're just thinking about ourselves, we're violating our own nature. When you violate your nature, you get pain. If you have pain and suffering in your life, analyze the situation and you'll always see that there's a selfish motive. The meditation is all about that, weeding that out. But you don't have to do a lot of heavy lifting. It could just be for the good of all, and then just focus. And keep the meditation itself, by the way, the formal meditation, simple. You don't need a lot of tricks. Just repeat. If you're asked to repeat a mantra, just try this. This is novel. Try just repeating the mantra. Say it once with complete attention. Every part of it. Try to get through one. And then as my brother, Reverend Jagannath, author of a great book on meditation that I list here, he says, what's to prevent you from doing that again? So you do it again. Keep it simple. Don't think of some fancy creative thing. Should I be absorbed into it? Should I surrender to it? All that. Forget that. That isn't what you were asked to do. Just repeat it. Believe me, it's strong enough. It's like we're watching the hero or heroine in a fairy tale. We're going, the magic beans, they gave you on page 1. Use the magic beans. They always forget. The moment comes and they forget. That's all of us. That's why it's in all those stories. We all have what we need already. You already have this. You understand? You're all great meditators. You already all have this. And as far as sitting and fixing the mind and not having the mind run and be distracted, nobody is that way to begin with. Nobody. None of these saints and sages. My guru, his guru, the Buddha, none of them were good meditators as far as formal meditation goes. That's not the way it works. There's no game. If it's you just sit down and focus totally and game over. What kind of game is that? Certainly not the game worthy of you, God. I'm sure there's a lot else I should tell you. It's all on the sheet, though. Certain times of day are very nice and helpful. Dawn. There's a special feeling before dawn when it's still dark. Very quiet. Prime meditation real estate. That's your morning meditation, if you can do it. I don't have time to do my meditation. Trade a little bit of your sleep for meditation. You can find the time. You'll get more from the meditation, even bad meditation. And don't judge your meditation the way I'm doing by saying that. And don't judge it the other way. Oh, I had a great meditation today. That's a real meditation killer. You'll never have that again. This little piece of the river that I'm standing in, this is great. These ripples here as it's going by. This is great. I'm going to hold on to this. That's the insanity. Be in the flow. You don't have to. You don't want to stop the flow. Meditation is the key to everything. That's the last thing I'll leave you with. That's a motto of Gurudev. And the reason he says it is because it's true. There's nothing in life that isn't enhanced by meditation, because it means enhancement. It means showing up with your whole heart. Show up. Show up. And enjoy the rest of the retreat. Meditate on it. I recommend meditating on everything. Thanks for putting up with me. I find it quite amusing. I have no idea what's going to come out of this mouth when I sit to give these talks. But that's why I feel, I keep referring to this. I feel good that I at least gave you a crib sheet. You'll read this and you say, why didn't he mention that? Well, it's on the sheet. It's all there. Okay, have a great time. And enjoy the retreat. Don't tense yourself up. Don't feel bad about anything that comes bubbling up. It's all natural. It's good. It's good. Om Shanti.